What makes the ENGL Special Edition Founders Edition amplifier so special, and why is it better than your amplifier? Just kidding, of course. Or am I? I guess you'll find out. Let's do a deep dive on this marvel of German amp engineering, but let's start with some heavy riffs. Check it out. Oh yeah, that sounded really, really good. Just perfect. So that was my Gibson Les Paul Custom through the lead 1 channel of this wonderful amplifier. Quick note on the signal chain: for all the tones in this demonstration, the amp will be fed through my RedSeven Amplification Amp Central reactive load and through fitting own hammer cabinets, which will be noted during the segments. Alright, so as you may or may not know, ENGL recently released this wonderful amplifier, their flagship basically, the Special Edition Founders Edition. In fact, I already did a quick demonstration on the pre-production prototype of this amplifier, the EL34 version in fact, which you can check out on my channel. I'll put a link in the description. Now I did have to send that one back, but this one is mine to keep, and this is the 6L6 version. And I've named her Roxanne, and I'll let you guys guess why that is. So in this video, I'm going to put the amplifier through its paces with various guitars and various styles and various tones, and we're going to explore what this thing can do and what makes it so special. First, I'm going to give you a quick overview of all the controls, and then we're going to get started with the demo. So it's a 5-channel amplifier basically, and the 4 main channels, so clean, crunch, lead 1 and lead 2, all have individual gain controls on the left side of the front panel. Now the 5th channel, which is the tube driver channel and which is hidden on the back of the amplifier, is quite cool and quite unique, but I'm going to do a dedicated video on that soon, because that special feature deserves its own video. The clean and crunch channels have a semi-shared EQ on the top row with individual treble controls for each channel. There's also a bright switch and a mid shift switch. The lead 1 and lead 2 channels also have a semi-shared EQ, again with individual treble controls and contour and mid-edge switches. Each channel has its own volume control, and the top row as well as the bottom row each have a reverb control that dials in the amount of reverb. And the reverb sounds quite nice actually. In the master section on the right of the front panel, there are 2 selectable presence controls as well as 2 selectable master volume controls. We also have depth punch and mega low punch voicing options, and also switches for the reverb, noise gate, FX loops, etc. You can control the amplifier via MIDI or with the dedicated ENGL foot switches. On the back we also have the noise gate threshold, and the noise gate, as with all ENGL amplifiers, is absolutely excellent. We have the 3 FX loops, 1 serial and 2 with the dry-wet balance control, various speaker outs, a line out, and of course the tube driver channel. Later in this video, I'm going to play with all the controls a little bit so you guys can really hear how all the controls react and how they affect the tone. But now let's do the fun stuff and get started with the demos. And let's start with the demo of the clean channel, because this clean channel is quite wonderful. The guitar that I'm going to use is my ESP LTD EC1000T in charcoal burst with the Fishman Fluence classic open core pickups on the neck pickup. On voice 2, So again, through the clean channel with a very low gain setting to keep it nice and clean, unless I pick really hard, then it gets to the edge of breakup territory. The reverb will be on as well, and I'm also going to turn on the bright and mid shift switches. And in the power amp section, I'm setting it to the classic voicing as well. Let's take a listen. Beautiful, that was a really nice clean tone indeed, and it worked really well with that guitar. And like I said, when I strummed harder in that strummy bit, you sort of got to that edge of breakup territory. I really like this clean channel a lot, and it's also very versatile because of the tonal shaping options that you have, as well as the gain boost and all that stuff. But you can really crank the gain on this channel to get a nice crunch as well, which I'll demonstrate later in this video. Now let's try some classic rock tones with my Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s with the Duncan JB in the bridge. Now let's see if this amp can do that classic British crunch tone. I also want to take this opportunity to show you guys the difference between the classic and the modern voicing and what it does for the crunch channel. So I'm basically going to switch back and forth between those two voicings, okay? And I'm also going to dial in the presence controls so that the sound is balanced for each voicing. So a higher presence setting for the classic voicing and a lower presence setting for the modern voicing, because the classic voicing sounds a bit warmer and a bit more dark, and the modern voicing sounds more open and sizzly, so a bit to compensate basically. If you don't compensate with the presence control, the difference will be much more drastic. I'm dialing in a touch of reverb, and the mid shift and bright switches will be on as well. And from now on, for all the tones in this video, the noise gate will be on as well. Okay, let's go ahead and take a listen. Check it out. Really nice. So this amplifier definitely can do that classic British tone really, really well. Gotta love those ENGL crunch tones, really cool. So this channel in itself is already quite versatile, especially with the classic and modern voicing options, so you can get really vintage and classic crunch tones, as well as more modern crunch tones. Now I want to see how heavy the crunch channel can get with some rock riffs, so I'll crank the gain on that channel and turn on the gain boost as well. And I'm also going to turn on the depth boost for a nice and chunky low end. And the guitar that I'm going to use is my ESP LTD Phoenix 1000 Deluxe with the Seymour Duncan SD5 custom pickup in the bridge. Now the mid-shift control in the tone stack of the crunch and clean channels changes the character of the mid-range in a really cool way. So I'm also going to take this opportunity to show you guys the difference between the tone with the mid-shift off and the mid-shift on. So again, I'll switch back and forth between the two settings. Okay, let's rock out. Enjoy. Wonderful! So the crunch channel definitely can do high gain, and it does have a very unique character, a bit more fat and warm than the lead channels, which we'll get to in a minute. But again, a lot of versatility here. So the lead channels are basically great for anything heavy, rock and metal, really tight and modern stuff. And the crunch channel can do the crunch stuff, of course, but also the high gain, but in a bit more of a vintage fashion. Really cool. Anyway, now let's move on and get to the heavy stuff with the lead 1 and lead 2 channels, and I'm very much looking forward to this. Let's do some metal riffs on the lead 1 channel using my Schecter E1 Apocalypse Red Rain with the stock pickup, the Apocalypse pickup in the bridge position. And this time I want to show you guys the difference between the depth boost and the mega low punch switches. So again, I'm going to switch between those so you guys can hear the difference. The difference might be subtle in some areas, but it does have a cool impact on the overall mix. So try to listen closely, and of course listen on proper monitors or a good pair of headphones. Oh, and by the way, for the high gain tones, I basically always have the high gain switch enabled, so I'll keep that enabled for all the lead tones. Okay, let's go ahead and check it out. Man, that lead 1 channel is just insane. I really love how that channel sounds. Of course, I also used that in the intro track with my Les Paul Custom, and it sounded ferocious there as well. So clear and tight and focused, but still organic sounding. I don't know how they pulled it off, but they did it. It's just the pinnacle of ENGL lead channels, in my opinion. So this is probably my favorite high gain lead channel of all the ENGL amplifiers. It's that good. And did you hear the difference between the depth boost and the mega low punch switches? As you could probably hear, the depth boost is a bit fatter in the lows, a bit more chunky, and the mega low punch does a similar thing, but it's a bit more subtle and it leaves more room for the kick and the bass. Now with both these switches off, I find the tone a little bit too thin for my taste, so I use either one of these switches, and I like having the option to switch between them. It depends on the song, on the guitar, and the tone that I'm going for, basically. Now I want to try some 6-string metal, but this time with an active pickup, so I'm going to try my ESP LTD Phoenix Arctic metal with the EMG 81 in the bridge. And this time I'm going to switch between the lead 1 and the lead 2 channels, so you guys can hear the difference. Overall, the lead 1 channel is a bit more modern, tight and open sounding, great for rhythms. And lead 2 is a bit more fat and saturated sounding and a bit more warm, but it still can do rhythms very well. But of course, it's also very well suited for a lead guitar. I'm going to dial them in so that they sound kind of close in terms of balance. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to crank the treble on the lead 2 channel a little bit because it's a bit on the darker side in comparison to the lead 1 channel. And the depth boost will be on for both the tones, by the way. Let's take a listen. Cool, that sounded awesome. So both the lead 1 and lead 2 channels sound absolutely wonderful for modern metal rhythm tones. So it's kind of like having 2 lead amplifiers in one with this amp. So the fact that this one has 2 lead channels sets this one apart from the Savage, for example, the Savage Mark II, because that amplifier has 2 crunch channels and 1 lead channel. And I like having 2 lead channels at my disposal. Okay, now I want to go lower with a baritone guitar, and I'll use my PRS SE Mike Mushok guitar for that with the DiMarzio deactivator in the bridge, tuned to drop A flat through the lead 1 channel, and I want to see how well that channel can handle those lower tunings with a passive pickup. It should sound quite chunky. And for this tone, I'll turn on the mega low punch switch as opposed to the depth boost. Okay, let's go ahead and take a listen right now. that sounded so good. This is probably my favorite tone so far in this demo. It's hard to choose though, because every tone so far has been absolutely stellar. Are you starting to see what makes this amplifier so special? Okay, moving on. Now I want to try a 7-string baritone to be precise. My purple ESP LTD SC607B1H to be precise, with the Fishman Fluence Steph pickup in the bridge on the active voicing, also in drop A flat. However, this time I'm going to try the lead 2 channel and see how that channel works with those lower tunings, and I think that the extra fatness and beef of that channel will work really well and complement the tightness of the Fishman pickup. Again, with the mega low punch voicing on. Check it out. Amazing. That tone was also stellar. And now finally an 8-string guitar tone, of course, using my Meshuggah Ibanez M80M with the Lundgren M8 in the bridge, tuned to F standard, through the lead channel, and this time with the depth boost on. Let's see if this amplifier can handle those really low 8-string tones. Check it out. Just awesome. So obviously this amplifier handles the low extended range guitars so well. It's amazing. And the cool thing is that despite the fact that it's voiced really well for low tunings, it still works really well for higher tunings, for standard tuning and stuff. I don't know how they did that, but they made it work. Because sometimes with amplifiers that are very well voiced for lower tunings, the tone is just too thin for a standard tuned guitar, but not with this amplifier. It's just so well dialed in any area you can think of, basically. And no pedals or boost pedals or anything like that were used, okay? So all that you heard was just the amplifier with the guitars. Now before I leave, I also want to show you guys how all the controls react and how they affect the tone. And for this, I'll just play some very simple chords with my Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s, just so you guys can really hear the tone of the amplifier and focus in on the changes that I'm making with the controls. I'm going to start with the gain controls for all the channels and the gain switches as well, so you guys can hear the range of gain that all the channels have to offer. And it's quite a big range, as you'll see. Quite amazing, actually. Let's take a listen. So that's a lot of range, okay, when it comes to the gain. Really cool. So the clean channel can do the cleans, as well as a very nice crunch tone. The crunch tone has various shades of gain. You can do crunch tones, of course, high or low gain crunches, and even a nice and thick high gain tone. And obviously, the lead channels do high gain very well as crunch tones. Now onto the tone stacks. I'll do some tweaking there and also mess with all the switches. So the contour switch, the mid edge, and all that good stuff. Let's go ahead and take a listen right now. Great, so the tone stacks sound great and they react really well in a really musical way. They have a very usable range, so that's always great when an amplifier has that. Again, dialed in very well. Now let's do a very quick test of the reverb control just so you guys can hear how much reverb there is on tap. Take a listen. Great. And now the master section on the right side of the amplifier with the presence control, the depth boost, the mega low punch, and the classic modern voicing switch. Let's take a listen and check it out. Alright, so that was the wonderful, the marvelous ENGL Special Edition Founders Edition 6L6 Edition. One of the finest amplifiers that I've ever tried, and I've tried a lot of amplifiers in my life. This amp is simply amazing, and I think that it speaks for itself why it's probably better than most other amplifiers out there, including your amps. It basically does it all, but it does it all so well. It's basically a flawless amplifier, and all the voicing options make this amplifier so flexible and versatile, but all the switches are also very useful. They really affect the tone in a usable way. So it really is a marvel, or the pinnacle of German amp engineering, and I love it. Now this amp definitely is my favorite ENGL amplifier, and it easily fits in my top 3 amplifiers of all time. Stay tuned for the dedicated video on the Tube Driver channel, because that will be an interesting video as it's a very unique feature. I'll post that on the channel soon. And thanks so much to my friends over at ENGL Amplification. You guys are the best. I really appreciate it, and thanks for making this happen. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and that you found it useful. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like and subscribe down below, as that really helps the channel out. I'd really appreciate it. And of course, also drop a comment in the comment section down below to let me know your thoughts on this amplifier. Okay, thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you soon. Cheers.